Welcome to the Make Your Mark podcast. Hey everyone, I'm Mark Moyer, author of Win Again, speaker, career coach, and business advisor. And I help athletes, executives, and entrepreneurs reach their fullest potential. What you're going to be hearing in every single episode are conversations with athletes and other sports-related influencers. And we'll be offering you the insight that you need to succeed in life, including advice that will let you jump past your competition, whether it be for a great new job or taking your business to a much, much higher level. Make sure to connect with me on social media at Mark Moyer Coach and go to my website, markmoyer.com, to get access to the tips and strategies that my coaching clients get directly. If you're looking for ways to make your mark, send me an email to mark@markmoyer.com and I'll get you going right away. Thanks for joining me today. It's going to be an awesome episode. Now, are you ready to make your mark? Let's do this. Welcome to the Make Your Mark podcast. My name is Mark Moyer and I'm not broadcasting to you live today from New York City, but instead Colgate University, Hamilton, New York. And I'm super excited to have you on board wherever you're listening. If it's here at Colgate, somewhere else in the United States, or anywhere else on our planet, thank you so much for being here. And I'm so damn excited today because, I just had Dan Hunt, who's the head football coach here at Colgate, on. And here's a guy who's not, I don't want to say not a traditional football coach, but he's a guy who's super focused on when he recruits players to come on the team. They're not just players, but they're really good humans. They're smart, and they're going to really take everything seriously because at the end of the day, there's a really good chance that almost all these guys are not going to go on to the NFL. So he's really trying to develop the whole human together. It was a great episode. We covered so many different things. The issue of concussions, recruiting, what makes a great student and a great athlete, all kinds of things, including lots of Seinfeld references, which I absolutely love. But before you listen in, please hit the subscribe button wherever it's on your screen. Whether you're listening on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Spotify, or if you're watching it, just hit that subscribe button. And go to my website anytime, markmoyer.com, to get access to all the amazing previous episodes, all my guests. It's been nearly 50 of them now. And great content on how to take your business and your career to a whole new level. Go check it out anytime, markmoyer.com. Would love to hear from you. Send me an email anytime too, mark@markmoyer.com. But without any further delay, check out this episode. You're going to love it. Dan's a great guy, really successful coach, a young guy, but he's already been at Colgate for a long time, over 20 years. So check it out and happy listening. Welcome to the Make Your Mark podcast. My name is Mark Moyer and I'm broadcasting not live from New York City, but I'm here at Colgate University for a reunion and I'm super excited to be here because I've got Coach Dan Hunt of the football team, the kick-ass football team, the one that just is amazing and awesome and all that stuff. We'll talk about that later. Say hello, Dan.
Hello. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. But anyway, no, thanks for being here. I know that it's a busy weekend, lots of things going on, but I managed to corral you and Rich helping out behind the controls. Super thrilled to be here. So I want to jump right in and really talk about, look, there's a lot of football we can talk about, and one of my passions that I'm big on also is helping athletes and student athletes make a transition when they have to leave their game. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But really, first things first, I want to hear about, what got you here. And so we're going to hit the rewind button a little bit and talk about, now, I want to hear you pronounce it, but where did you grow up?
I grew up in a little town about 50 miles from here called Canajoharie, New York.
Canajoharie.
Canajoharie.
I kind of had a feeling like that. And it was that, and it's almost like a can of whoop ass. No,
yeah, you open up a can of Joe Harry on somebody, that's right.
Anyway.
We call it Can Joe for short.
Can Joe, all right. And you went to high school there and so forth. I mean, you grew up there and so on. What made you choose in the end, number one, to get involved with sports in general, and number two, football?
Sure. Well, I was a three-sport athlete in high school. I started off as football, basketball, baseball. I was a bigger kid, so like any big kid in Little League, I could hit home runs and do that. But then as baseball got better and you got older, I saw my first curveball and realized it's time to run track. So I became a track athlete instead of baseball once I hit high school. But football and basketball were my two best sports. I'm a taller guy. I'm about 6'6". And then as it came time to choose kind of what sport to play in college, I kind of let the recruiting kind of handle that. I love both sports equally. I realized pretty quickly that 6'6" in basketball means you still have to dribble and shoot, which I couldn't do. I was a center, and 6'6" in football is pretty good. So I ended up looking more towards going into my senior year. I ended up focusing more on the football schools that were recruiting me. Didn't have a great recruiting experience in high school, and that really kind of still kind of steers me today in my recruiting. But I was all set to go to one university, was offered a scholarship, committed to them fairly early, and I remember it was the signing day still was on was in February. It was the last Friday before the signing day, and we actually had a snow day. So I was home from school, and the phone rang in the middle of the afternoon, which was weird. And it was my mom answered the phone, and it was for me. This was before cell phones, obviously. Yeah. And it was the coach from the school I was going to go to, and he said, sorry, I hate to tell you this, but we got a new coordinator who doesn't want to use a tight end, so you don't have a scholarship here anymore. And it was really late in the game. So at that point, I just went scrambling to try to find a place to go to school. And I actually got pretty disenchanted with the whole process, to be honest with you. Said I was going to go to RPI and be a doctor. And so that's where I decided to go for 1 year. Realized real quickly that really wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a coach. I knew my high school football coach made a big impact on my life. I knew that's what I wanted to do moving forward. So what I did was, back in the day when schools would come recruit you, they'd hand you a media guide and, just information on the team and everything. So I just went back. I probably had a stack of 25 to 30 media guides, and I just went back through them and looked at the coaching staffs and said, where did they go to college, and see if that would be something that would help me. And I realized that Springfield College in Massachusetts had a coach on just about every staff in the country, and they had recruited me originally out of high school, so I transferred in there and had a great experience going to undergraduate school there. Got my undergraduate degree there, and then I got out.
But did you play there?
I played there. Yes,
right.
I played tight end there. In a wishbone offense, so you don't really throw the ball very much in that. So I would get like 2 or 3 catches a year, but great experience. Just a great experience playing there. Played for a great coach, Mike DeLong, who he had another big influence on me. When I got done, I went out and coached high school for 1 year in Albany, New York, and then went back to Springfield to get my master's degree and was a graduate assistant there. Coached there for 3 years while I got my master's, and then that brings us to 1995 when I got done with my master's degree.
Last year.
Yeah, right. Right. Well, it kind of was because when I got done, now I'm looking for that next job. You're looking for maybe a Division I entry level restricted earnings job. Using my Springfield ties to people that were coaching in other places, I had 2 job interviews coming out of there. One was at Colgate, and one was at Columbia. And at that time, neither team was very good.
Yeah, I know Columbia wasn't. But I guess Colgate wasn't.
And Colgate was in a down period too. And I wasn't at that point in my life, particularly. I was not a New York City guy, so I ended up taking the job here at Colgate. My first year, Colgate went 0-11, and everybody got fired. And I was fortunate that they named Coach Biddle, who was on the staff. They named him head coach. He kept me on as an entry level guy, and I just was able to work hard and stay on his staff through all of his success and slowly move up. And then when he retired 5 years ago, I was still here, and they
wait. Who still left?
Yeah. Hey. Oh, that guy.
Oh, huh?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
He doesn't. He's still in his office. Let him be the head coach. So they made me head coach, and I've been really fortunate to be here. It's not a very common track in the world of college coaching. To be at one place this long. I have been able to kind of change my job, change what I do, change what I coach. I've coached a bunch of different positions, worn a bunch of different hats, but been able to live and work here in one spot, and from a family standpoint, and with my wife and kids, and the relationships we've established here, it's worked out really well.
Well, and it's great because I know that Alabama called. They tried to get you to go there, Nick Saban, right? And
all that stuff. Saban was the second choice. But no, I've certainly had opportunities to go other places, and it's got to be right. And when I got into coaching. Once I realized this was what I was going to do, particularly at the college level for a while, I said, I want to go somewhere and coach somewhere where you work with great kids, and if you do your job well, you can win. I didn't want to go somewhere that couldn't win, and I also didn't want to go somewhere that you don't have to work to win. And
Right.
so this place has been very rewarding in that sense, is that there's enough support here to where you can win, but you got to earn it. And certainly, obviously, as you know, working with people at Colgate, you're working with great people. So it's been a really nice match.
Well, and what's great about this particular school is that I remember even back when I was touring it, a long time ago, they had cars back then, and what was interesting was that what struck me was not just the beautiful campus and the academics. Honestly, the academics, when I was in high school, I really couldn't care less about that. I was thinking, yeah, I'm out of the parents' house, I'm here. But what always impressed me is that even though a lot of the focus is on the academics, a lot of focus on athletes and athletics, and not just the varsity sports, but everything, club. Everybody's out being active, and when the sun's out anyway, for 4 days a year. But
that was. I'll be honest. I mean, when I first came here from Springfield, even though I grew up about an hour and a half from here, I had never really been here, and I kind of thought the same thing. I heard about the academics. I'll be honest. I was expecting a bunch of nerds running around.
Right.
And my first day, I came up to the office, and that's exactly what you said. There was intramural basketball going on. There was club sports. There are a lot of athletes here, and that was endearing. So I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I ended up playing rugby my senior year, but I didn't know what the hell rugby was when I first came. I mean, I'd never been exposed to it. So I think what's nice about it is that you, as an incoming freshman, you have an opportunity to play a lot of different sports. But on top of that, you have the opportunity to bring together. I mean, people, I think, are interested in coming here. It's not just because there's a football team or just because, but it's just a great place to end up and land. And I'm sure that's why you've stayed here so long, too.
Yeah. And events like this, like Reunion, when you meet Colgate alums from all different eras, all different walks of life, there's kind of a common... I don't know, common trait in them, and they're just interesting people who strive to be successful, and it's almost like a common gene of all of them. They're the same type of people that you like to stand under a tent with, and whether they played football, basketball, rugby, hockey, doesn't matter. You can kind of tell, that's a Colgate person, and I think that's what's special about this place is there's almost like a bloodline.
I agree, and it's almost like when you run into an alum anywhere on the planet. It's almost like you don't need to, like you already have that connection. There's nothing you need to. There's a lot, very little you need to say. I've turned into the grumpy old guy though, absolutely. Where I'm like, when I was here, we didn't have oxygen. We didn't have.
Because the hill was bigger back then.
Well, much bigger. Well, there was, there's no hill now. It's like, and then the little shuttle buses and everything. Oh my God! But. And we also talk about the food where, when I was here, there's still the student union. It's called the Hall of Presidents now where, I feel like it was where prison kind of, you kind of walk down with the thing and they're slopping on the food. And now it's, gluten-free options and all that sort of thing. An omelet bar. Anyway, it's all great for the kids now and everything else. It's all wonderful. So the whole, and we're going to talk in a minute about the success you've had and so forth with the team and so on. But give me an idea when you recruit, because you were talking a minute ago about your experience wasn't that wonderful and so forth. So what do you think makes a better recruiting experience?
Honesty, communication. I think those are the key. And in Division I recruiting, there's so much pressure, and there's two ways to recruit guys. There are coaches and teams that will recruit with a lot of pressure. They'll a kid will go in the room with the coach and says, "You're not leaving this room till you tell me you're coming," and that's just not our style. What we try to do is lay out who Colgate is, explain who we are, and if you want to be a part of it, we're going to be honest with you and give you every opportunity to do it. We always say there's no curveballs. I get a kick. Twitter these days is really recruiting is turned to Twitter for just about everything, and so many kids now. Something goes wrong. You see a kid commit somewhere, and 2 months later, he's putting on Twitter on he uses his notes so he can get more words in and says he's decommitting from one school to go to another. And it's always funny because the word decommit always has the red line under it because decommit is not a word. It only exists in the world of recruiting. You can't really decommit. And, it's just, we try to avoid that at all costs. We try to avoid us, saying one thing to a kid. We tell a kid, if you commit to us, we're committing to you. We have kids commit going into their senior year, and if they if they get an injury and they've committed to us, we honor the commitment. We're not going to back off because they got hurt. Once you commit to Colgate, we try to say, listen, we're on board. There's no curveballs. And it's just, we lose kids because we don't pressure them. I understand that. But also, we don't lose kids once they commit to us. I think that when you build a relationship based on that, things tend to last. And that's just, a lot of that is because of what happened to me. When I was getting recruited, I keep that in the back of my mind every time I sit down in the living room or my office with a family. And it's worked pretty well.
Clearly. And what's interesting when you say that when someone commits, they don't decommit. I think when you find that when there's a young man who decides he wants to come here, I mean, yeah, it's a lock. I don't see how or why they would want to, unless, yes, a bigger school perhaps chase them down. But that's, so it's not just, I guess, the process of the recruiting, but then once they're in, what do you almost say? I mean, I'd love to know, what do you say to them almost the first time? I mean, first practice, first time you're meeting all the new guys.
Sure. Well, now that we've had a fairly long, you look at Colgate's football history, it's pretty impressive, and one of the things we talk about is, one of our big lines is, with tradition comes responsibility. And, a lot of kids choose to come here because they want to be a part of a program that's won, and they want to be a part of all of that comes with that. And what they have to understand is they are signing on to take the responsibility on to continue that. And we try to, we use the term culture a lot. And that's really the freshmen, their biggest thing is they have to understand the culture and kind of, you got to get caught up in it. It's like a big sticky wheel, and here it comes for you. And when it rolls you over, you got to stick to it and keep rolling. And, we always say kids are either going to get it or they're gonna leave. And kids don't leave here. We don't get a lot of kids leaving the program. And now that culture, that wheel just keeps getting bigger, and the culture starts to run itself. And that's the biggest thing is we try to sell it to them before they get here, so it's not a surprise when they get here. But the biggest part of being here is that, and then you got to give them the confidence that they can do it. They got to understand that we wouldn't have recruited them to be a part of this team if we didn't think they were good enough, and also admissions wouldn't have let them into school if they didn't think they could do the work, because that is a big part here too, is obviously the academic load. Well,
I'm glad you brought that up, because it's interesting when you're 18 or 19, 17, 18, 19, you're at home, you're going to high school, you're playing for coach whoever, but then you come home afterwards, mom or dad has a nice meal for you, they do your laundry, and then suddenly you're here, and you've got coach and his team have their expectations. Oh crap, I've got a philosophy test or whatever test, next week. I've got, and then they've got this girl, I kind of think she's cute, and, your hormones are raging, your brain is all messed up. It's a lot.
Yeah, that's that first year, I think that first year in particular it's a big adjustment. And you add the, other adjustment of, on their high school team, they're probably one of the top 2 or 3, if not the best player on the team. And then they come here and it's like, hey, get your butt down to scout team, because there's 3 kids ahead of you on the depth chart. So, it can be a lot on a kid coming in from that situation. Sports were easy, school was easy, life was easy, and now all of a sudden, they're thrown into this arena where everyone is like that. So, we understand that. We try to keep our eyes open with the kids, and that's where having 89 teammates helps you too. Is the class ahead of you. They just went through it, and they can talk you through. Colgate alumni, our football team, we have a great mentoring program where when kids come in, they're assigned a mentor. And usually your freshmen, we assign them a younger mentor. It's not really a career mentor. It's more, hey, here's how you get by your first year Colgate mentor. Right. And so we give them a lot of opportunities to utilize the help that we have. And most of them, they do it. I mean, when they do it, sometimes it takes a little bit. But I think starting your freshman year in the fall playing a sport is a lot easier than maybe a basketball or a lacrosse or a hockey player who doesn't have the structure right away. I think what's nice for our freshmen is, they come in early for preseason. So they're here for 2 weeks before the other freshmen get here. So it's like by the time orientation starts, they almost feel like sophomores. They know where everything is. They know people. And so they kind of have that routine going in that first semester. So they almost forget that I'm away from home for the first time. They've moved beyond that. And that really helps. I think if you had to come in and start like a regular student and then start your sport, that's probably a little bit harder. It'd be interesting to talk to a spring sport coach or a winter sport coach of how their freshmen handle that. But for us, it's nice. To be honest with you, we worry about our guys more in the spring semester when they don't have that structure,
right.
that they don't go hog wild of saying I have all this free time.
Well, but do they? Or I mean, do you have expectations of them to remain in any sort of? I mean, I'm assuming some sort of physical shape or something. But I mean, how often do they continue during the spring, or what do they?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's definitely during the spring semester they work out 5 days a week. Okay, or 4 days. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, 4 days a week. And then they will also run on a couple mornings. So there's still a time commitment there, but it's just not the everyday practice. It's not the travel for the games. Football now, especially at the Division I level, it's 365. It's, we have already, graduation was 2 weeks ago. We've got 30 kids back already, ready to train for the summer, and then they'll be in the next couple weeks. We'll up that number. So there's always something every day, which is good because even though it's less structure in the spring, it's still structure, still stuff they have to do. And then obviously once we get in April, we start spring practice and that gets them. But it's just usually it's been interesting that you would think that particularly a freshman that his lowest GPA would be the fall of his freshman year, when sometimes it's the spring of his freshman year because they get that.
Yeah, they can exhale, but they exhale too much.
Yes. Hopefully not inhale.
I was going to say, I'm trying to figure out what I just said. Anyway, invoking Bill Clinton or whatever it was.
That's right.
Oh, geez. Anyway, so obviously the team and yourself have enjoyed some nice success over the past few years, and this past year was fabulous. Until, what else is in North Dakota?
Apparently nothing but screaming loud in a big dome and making sure we can't beat their football team. That was an experience like you read about it and at our level, that's the Alabama of FCS football.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
when we kind of saw the bracket that all right, if we can beat James Madison, we're going to Fargo. Our kids were excited. Don't get me wrong. And then you get off the plane, then you realize you got to play them. But it was a great experience. I don't know what else is in Fargo, North Dakota, because I would tell you the entire population of Fargo was in that parking lot at 5 a.m. in their green and gold RVs with big flags and tailgating and then screaming their heads off when we tried to run a play. But it was a great experience for our guys. Personally, I think this year with the team we had, if we could have played anyone else in the quarterfinals, we probably had a good chance to win. We just ran into the national champions in the quarterfinals instead of in the finals.
Yeah, and look, we were all excited as alums to be watching the progression and so forth. And it's funny because I ran into a James Madison alum recently, and he was sure that they were going. So it was, and that was great to host the game here.
Yeah, that was special. That was special.
The only catch was the timing, right, during I guess spring break for the kids. So
yeah. It was pretty good that we rallied the students that were here. We rallied them up. We moved the student section. It was really kind of funny. We moved the student section to behind the visitors bench. We've never done that before, so we put them actually right behind James Madison, and they had a Fraturday tailgate. So they were doing what college kids do on a Saturday, getting ready for the game, and it had snowed. So they had cleared the snow, but there were piles of snow, and let's just say a few snowballs were fired at the James Madison people, and. Not that I condone that.
That's right.
But it certainly, gave us a little bit of a home field advantage. But it was good to have the energy of a home playoff.
Oh yeah. Well, and I have to think that the players from down there, they're not accustomed to the cold weather and the snow, so they were probably. I'm sure they sort of felt a little bit of what you guys felt going into North Dakota in the dome and so on.
Sure.
That's crazy to play in a dome, right? At this level.
It was the Fargo Dome is the loudest venue in all of sports.
Oh really? Wow.
It's they were. I forget what the decibel level was.
What's the capacity?
It's 19,000. It's not huge,
right?
But it's 18,500 screaming, North Dakotans and 500 Colgate people tucked up in the corner, trying to do what they could. But and they're smart. They know how to make noise when we have the ball, and when North Dakota State had the ball, they were dead quiet, so they could get done what they needed to get done.
Interesting. And I've seen all these footage of. Like even the New York Giants practicing in loud environments by blasting music and so forth, but still, it's different than being in there, and it's like all, and it's probably, I'm sure some of the kids were a little bit rattled by it,
Yeah, I think we handled when we were getting ready to play them that week. We practiced in the field house. I don't love practicing in the field house,
right.
but we went in there and we grabbed actually the speakers that they use for concerts at DU and put them directly behind our offense and cranked up the noise as loud as we could. Mm-hmm. And I think our kids handled the communication of the noise. But here, what was interesting, and even noticed it in practice, when it's that loud, you don't think as well. And we made a lot of mental mistakes in that game that we normally wouldn't make, and that's to me where the distraction of it. You can hand signal, you can do lots of stuff to make sure that everyone knows what you're thinking, but when you can't focus, that to me was really the biggest surprise, was just how you really couldn't think as well as you could.
Well, if you think about it, when you're trying to read or study or anything, you can't be doing that when someone's screaming at you or whatever it is. So
I'd imagine operating rooms are pretty quiet,
No, don't cut there. Or
what?
Or wait, you're Mr. Seinfeld, right?
The junior man.
Junior man.
That's right. It's a junior man.
Well, we could talk Seinfeld all day long.
That'd be a whole separate podcast.
No kidding. Go. Oh my God. So you had this great season, though, but obviously, though, what you have to impart on your players is it was great, but, tomorrow's the next day and so forth, right?
Yes. And what was refreshing was, you do a lot of exit meeting with your kids at different point of the year, and you do some goal setting. And after spring practice this year, I sat down with every player on the team and, talked about their individual goals, but also talked about the team goals. And to a man, they wanted to say we need to be better than last year, and they also wanted to play North Dakota State again.
Yeah,
they said,
I would
be careful
imagine.
what you wish for, but but they know that was that a great team or was it are we a program? I always talk about weather versus climate. You can have one nice day. It doesn't mean you live in a great climate. That's good weather. So if we can keep it going, then you have a climate or a culture, and you have a program, and that's what we're trying to strive for.
So one thing, I was at the Fordham game. I may have mentioned to you before, and I remember watching that game and just saying, is it that Colgate is this good or is Fordham this bad? It was domination. It wasn't even, it was ugly kind of. And the irony is that my daughter just graduated from Fordham, but she wasn't there, which was good for her. But there, they had like 36 fans and we had hundreds, right? It was definitely a Colgate home game kind of thing. But I guess the question is because, look, obviously you guys rolled over almost everybody in the Patriot League and had the 5 straight shutouts and so forth. I want to say this carefully to all the other Patriot League listeners out there, wherever I pointed that way, but they're not actually over there right now. But anyway, but is it something where you guys feel like you've just hit your stride and you really know what works? Is it something where the competition is just not as strongish?
I think it's a combination of both this year. I think some of the teams that traditionally have good teams were down, some due to injury, some due to, I don't know what. But also, I think one thing we've done a really good job of, and this is where myself, I've worked with Coach Biddle for a long time. I also, when Coach Biddle first started, I worked with Coach Dunlap. And those are probably the 2 greatest football coaches in Colgate history and 2 of the best coaches in the country. But you kind of learn, and maybe even just specific to Colgate, you learn what succeeds and what type of player to recruit. And one thing we do is we don't vary from that at all. We don't get caught up in, too much hype with kids or highlight films that make, we know the type of kid we want and we recruit that player, and it doesn't matter if we're their only offer. It doesn't matter if they have 100 offers. We won't stray from that formula, of how to build a team and where you have to keep it. And I think that's one of the advantages of us having a lot of continuity on our staff too. A lot of our coaches have been here a long time. So as other teams in the league get new coaches and get new assistants, they kind of have to learn. The Patriot League's different. There's definitely an art to recruiting Division I academic kids at this level, and our learning curves in our rearview mirror. We kind of know what we need to do, and as these other teams try to figure it out, hopefully we can just keep getting further ahead and make them have to go even farther. But I think it was a combination of both. A couple down teams, but this was in all my time at Colgate. I don't know how many 03 guys are going to be listening, but this was the best team we've had. I really think that this team was better than the team that played for the national championship in 2003.
Well, look, when you have a defense that's so suffocating, right? I mean, and I know I could tell from up there how demoralized the offense gets that's facing your defense when they're like, hey, coach, nothing's working. What the hell? So, and then I remember there was a couple, like one or two completions. And I was like, wait, that's not supposed to happen. What the hell? I mean, but I was in the stands, like updating my buddy with I was on the phone doing the real time, like total yards. And I was like, oh my God, I was talking to all the people around me. So that was great. I don't want to, all right, enough of this sucking up, I think. But no, but it was a magical season. But hopefully it's something that, did you, all right. I know you're going to say you lost a lot of talent, a lot of seniors and so on, but I'm assuming the incoming is so. Yeah. But do you feel like you got a similar sort of set of people and prospects and all that sort of thing?
Yeah, I do. It's funny because this group of seniors that just graduated, they are the only group in Colgate history that, because 3 years ago they went to the quarterfinals also. Right. So they've had that national success at a couple different times, and hopefully got the program to where it's not just a one-time thing. And I do think that the kids in the program have seen how it's done. This class was really great at kind of setting culture and work ethic, and now the guys below them, who, to be honest with you, are just as talented. It's just going to be a matter of, are they going to have that same kind of cohesiveness or culture or whatever it is? And I think we do. I think we're going to be a very good team moving forward. I'm not going to sit here and say we're going to shut out 5 people probably ever again. That's so rare. But we're going to have a very good defense. We're going to have a very good offense, and hopefully that it's something that we've built to kind of sustain itself for a while.
Oh, that's awesome. So I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about the guys that just graduated and how you feel they can leverage what they've learned here at Colgate on the field and off that will help them going forward, because this may come as a shock to the listeners, but not all of them go to the NFL right away. In fact, there's probably not too many of them do, which is, it is what it is. That's the way it goes. But what do you think, what strikes you as some of the things that they exhibit that would make them really great hires going forward? I mean, sure. Great,
Yeah, I think athletes in general really have some traits to themselves that lend themselves to be successful. I think one thing with football in particular, I might be biased, but I think football is the ultimate team game. Mm-hmm. You look at an offense, almost half the players on an offense will go their whole career and never touch the football. Your offensive line, they'll never touch the football, but yet they still play. So I think that being coachable, being a teammate, being able to see goals through adversity. I think all these things that athletes do, and in my world with football do, really lend themselves to life after football. And I think one good thing about being in a school like Colgate, listen, all of my guys want to go to the NFL. I mean, they want to do it, but also, I think for the most part, the fact that they chose a school like Colgate, they already understand, hey, there's life other than the NFL that they have to be ready for, which is good. Maybe at an Alabama or Florida, that's probably maybe a little bit harder lesson to teach to kids, because they all probably think they're going to go and they all legitimately will have a chance to go. Where here, we might get 1 or 2 a year who have a chance. But so they already kind of come in saying, all right, I need to think beyond the 4 years of college of what comes next. And I think that what you do is really important for athletes. Getting a little bit into your book and starting it off is just, it's got to be hard. And I know you've dealt with professional athletes who've done it even longer and probably have much more level of fame and all that stuff. But being to these kids, being an athlete's their identity for the majority of their life. And now all of a sudden, if you don't ever address it leading up to that day when they're done, sometimes they get hit in the face with it.
Well, it's funny. One of the things I mentioned the other day to somebody else is that if you put an athlete in a room full of, we'll say, professionals or executives, something, they're incredibly intimidated. You put them in a locker room, confidence is through the roof. If you put an executive in a locker room, they want to hide somewhere, they're not comfortable. Put them in so really, to me, as soon as you can get a student athlete understanding that they can transition a lot easier if they understand all the different things they do bring to that table, and they sort of start feeling that confidence that they felt on the field or in the locker room in a professional environment, whatever it is, or if they want to start a business, whatever it might be, that's the key. It's once they get that confidence that they can succeed in something else, sky's the limit. But that's the tough bridge to gap to bridge gap, whatever.
Gap, yeah.
Okay. And I think that you're right. The other things you listed about what athletes bring, but they also, to me, especially in football, I mean, there's a playbook. It's not easy to, but on top of learning learning all these plays, you've got to be amazingly quick to adapt. You got to
Right.
turn on a dime. And, these are all critical things that really work in the business world that, whether it's sales and trading or business development or being in a marketing role or being in a media relations or anything. But if you're one of these people that can do some of these other things, you become incredibly valuable. But what is really valuable that people don't understand is their ability to be coached, to be managed. Because there's a whole lot of managers and supervisors and so on out there that they look at some of the people coming out of college who don't want to be managed. They're too damn good to be, but these, your guys are used to that. They're used to taking direction, and they're used to trusting the direction they get. Right. That's it. So,
yeah, I think that's something that I totally agree with you. Is kind of today where we're at. The yes sir is going away. And let's face it, in a hierarchy of business, you need some people who do what they're told and do it well, and that's what athletes do. You said trust. I think that's the, as a leader, as a coach, or if you're a leader in business, obviously you have to be somebody that they can trust that what you're telling them is for their good or is going to be profitable or however you look at it. But an athlete's going to say, you say jump, I say how high. And You're right. I think there isn't a lot of that outside of that world to where I think that's a strength that an athlete can bring to a job situation, particularly a team sport, and put himself ahead. And also when you play a sport with an opponent, you're right. The situation is going to change. It's not static. It's fluid. If you're a golfer, the hole's not moving. You know what you have to do. No one's going to come running out and try to hit your ball away from you either. But if you're an offense versus defense or a team versus team sport, you don't know what you're going to get. And you have to be able to shift modes and shift your way of thinking. And all of those translate well into life after sport.
Well, because even when you're negotiating against somebody, I mean, that's the thing. It's all pivoting. It's all being, sort of quick to understand these things. And to me, I agree. Yes, football is. Well, I'm not allowed to agree about that. I think I got to be more, Switzerland or whatever.
Get down the middle now. Let's go.
Hit it down the middle. Golf is a team sport. No, wait. No. But anyway, I think that. Look, I think Colgate, this particular university, does a great job preparing kids for life after, right? But is that something that, you've got so much on your plate to get the team ready. Do you have other people on the staff that do that sort of thing, or do you try to do it, or how's that work?
Yeah, I try to do it, and the other group I lean on are our alumni. Our football program has a great alumni base who want to help. We talked a little bit about the mentors that we have. Basically, we take our kids and we will divide them. They will have two mentors while they're at Colgate, whether a freshman and a sophomore. It's a younger mentor who is, hey, let me help you survive Colgate. Right. Now, get into your junior, senior year when you're starting to think a little bit more about that job transit, what you want to do, what you want your career to be. Now we try to match them up with somebody in that career. And we actually have a full curriculum that our team goes through from freshman to senior year with our alumni and with our career services office, to where they have to think about life after football from day one. Last season, the first thing we did as a group was in career services. Before we practiced, we had a interview training for the upperclassmen and a little bit of self-exploration for the freshmen. We think that's real important. I'm going to go into the living room of a parent that I'm recruiting their son and say, we have their best interests in mind. We're going to help them be prepared. And this curriculum that our alumni and our career services have put together for our kids is really, I don't see a lot of other places doing it, and probably it needs a special place like Colgate to do it. But we put them through from a full calendar from freshman to senior year. And, we have all these alumni that want to help. Hey, I have an internship in this field, or jobs. We don't give our players access to that group of people until they've passed all the steps along the way to make sure they're prepared for that. I don't think it does them a service if we just say, oh, you're a football player, here's a job. Whether you might not be prepared for it, that doesn't help the kid, and it doesn't help the guy reaching out to help to help and say, we don't want to send them an employee who's not ready to go. So, so we stay. All of us coaches buy into it, so we all stay involved with it. All the assistants also stay involved with it. We put a lot on the kids. We told her, I can promise you this: there's probably no other football team in the country that we told their players, if your resume wasn't certified, you can't practice this spring. So we put a lot on the kids to show some initiative. We bring in a lot of people to talk to our guys about different fields, because even the ones that know what they want to do, come on, when I was a junior in high school, I wanted to be a marine biologist. So, you just don't know, so you want to expose them to different things, and we force them to research 3 or 4 different fields. And at times they hate it because it's work, and a lot of it's over the summer. But when you see the end result of them getting, we say you don't just want to get them a job, you want them to get the right job and a fulfilling job. And so we make that a big part of what we do. And I wouldn't be able to do it without our career service offices and without our alumni.
That's great. Well, speaking of which, one of the things that I push really hard with the people that I coach and work with is the whole notion of networking and really leveraging your network, and not just saying, well, I have, whatever it is, 200 or 2,000 Twitter followers or whatever it is, right? But more so, what do you do with them and how do you engage with them? And to me, it's funny, especially the younger men and women, that are in college and just getting out, they don't leverage things like LinkedIn as much as and I'll talk about you too, but at some point about that afterwards. But anyway, it's, to me, it's such a great way to chase down fellow alums, Colgate or any school, and then really start the dialogue going to the point where they say, hey, would you ever be interested in coming to work here? Mm-hmm. And to me, that's the big thing that, especially now, I see with all the, kids looking at their phones all the time, they're less comfortable engaging eye to eye. And it's something that it's just happening. And if we teach them at an early age the ability to do this, and the ability to, as you said, do a little bit of the yes sir, no sir, whatever it might be, but also just engage in conversation, they're going to be so far ahead of everybody else that's this.
Right.
And that's such an important thing. Well, look, I'm going to shift gears one more time.
Sure.
Ready? This little segment called Hit Your Mark. It's just we're just throwing some things out there, but I noticed in your profile that there's certain things you're a big fan of. One of them is Seinfeld, apparently.
Huge fan, yes.
Huge fan. I think it's funny. I keep on my television a rolling, it's a TiVo, so it constantly records all the Seinfeld episodes. So I always have 25 queued up, like just at any time to be able to hit them. Because look, living in New York, this is my day-to-day. I live that stuff all the time. In fact, I had a guy, I interviewed for the podcast recently, the president of the Baseball Hall of Fame, and the guy named Jeff Idelson, and he's been at the Hall for 25 years. A long time. He's my age anyway. You're way younger anyway.
Yeah, thanks for that.
But he's my age. But he actually worked for George Steinbrenner for 5 years, and I said, oh my God, what was that like? This guy. And I said, all I picture now is George.
Hire that man.
Yeah, exactly. And then
eat the bread, eat the bowl.
And I said, and he said, sure enough, the very first time he met him, George put his arms on his shoulders, and he's like, you're a fine young man from Detroit, right? And the guy's like, no, I'm from Boston or whatever. But he said, first 3 words, or here are my 3 words of advice: rent, don't buy. And he was like, okay, great, but it went on from there. But it's so funny how Seinfeld, the caricatures of all these people are amazing. But what's your favorite Seinfeld? Is there a favorite?
Episode?
Yeah.
I'd say the Kenny Rogers Roasters is an all-time classic for me. That's one of my favorites. I love them all. I have a least favorite episode. The Chinese food restaurant episode is I do not like that episode. It's just I don't know what it is. There's something about it. That's probably the only one I would flip off of if it came on. But I would say if you were to force me to choose one, either the Kenny Rogers Roasters episode or the where Kramer adopts a mile of the Arthur Burkhardt Expressway. That's another good one. So it's just such a classic show.
It widens the highway.
Yeah. What was 4 lanes is now 2 lanes of sweet comfort. And it's just the way they tie everything together. In that show, it's just
it's brilliant writing.
It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant.
That's fun. Yeah, and like the TV guide, that, and I mean all these things on the subway.
With the gyro on the subway. Yeah,
oh my
exactly
God.
Right.
I love that. Anyway, but also I know that I looked at it was cute stuff that Colgate has on the website about things you like, don't like, whatever. But what is something you would change if you would change anything about whether it's here at Colgate or the football experience, football team?
I think that as you look at higher education, honestly, I do think that something eventually has to get done with the cost. That is something that I think that's on everyone's mind. I think that we got to be careful that higher education doesn't price itself out of being available to a lot of people. As far as football, I think the biggest thing right now with our sport is I feel like it's a little bit under attack. And I think one of the messages I would love for people to understand is football did not invent the concussion. And it's not, people always talk about, would you let your son play if you had a young kid now? This would be the best time if you had young kids for them to play football because of all the awareness, Yes, was there a time and were there practices in football that were not safe and not smart? Yes, but I think those days are over. And so that would be my biggest PR is that, football it's a contact sport. Yes. It's a collision sport. Yes. But, there are other sports with more concussions than us. We didn't invent the concussion. And, when you look at CTE and things like that, I mean, particularly what percentage of people go on to play as much football as these NFL guys? I mean, most kids play 4 years of high school, and some may play in college, some may not, and that's it. And hopefully, as coaches, it's our job to adapt practice strategies that don't put kids at risk for it. And I think we're getting there. I think as a sport, we're getting there. I think one of the things I try to do at Colgate, and I tell this to our players, is we want to dispel a lot of the stereotypes about football players. I tell them all when I talk to them. When I first recruit them, I say, you say you're a football player. People probably make some assumptions about your intellect. Well, at a place like Colgate, you have a chance to say, no, just because I'm a physical football player and I love to hit people, that doesn't mean I can't be a great student and a great employee or a great person. And so that's really why I've enjoyed Colgate so much. Is you have an opportunity here to have kids who are all Americans on a football field, but also, a couple of our seniors graduated with a 4.0 in chemistry. I mean, that's what you'd like to see.
Absolutely. And it's funny, when I was here, I took Geology 101, which was called Rocks for Jocks, right?
Yeah.
Thinking, what a breeze. Well, it wasn't a breeze. And it actually was such a fascinating class that I ended up becoming a geology minor, even though I was an economics major, which doesn't make any sense. But I was like, this is really cool. And honestly, it was not an easy sort of discipline, but there were a fair amount of athletes. I mean, look, even back then, I mean, the athletes were incredibly bright. And interestingly, I think athletics helps students become better students too. I mean,
I think so. I think so. With the time management you have to learn and the routine, and again, I think that the structure of it. I agree. I think athletics is a great tool to let kids kind of grow and mature, especially at this level, at the college level. No matter what sport it is, when you budget the time commitment and the sacrifice for your sport, it forces you to become a more efficient, maybe, student and someone who has a little bit more mature aspect of what college should be.
Well, and just getting the exercise is pretty damn good, right? Get off the couch or whatever, out from in front of the video game. Oh, Jesus, I'm turning into grumpy dad now.
Yeah, I'm gonna get off my lawn.
Right, exactly.
I'm with you, though.
So I noticed in there you mentioned you wish you'd invented
Oh, there's a lot of things that, let's see, at that one, what was it? I wish I had invented was it the Keurig?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Just as someone who drinks a lot of coffee, that's brilliant. I'm waiting for him to, it's starting to also, I said, why can't they have a cold one that makes, juice flavored drink? They're starting to have it, so maybe I should have been an inventor, but,
Well, you can invent all day long. You need to execute, though.
That's right.
Because I have all these great ideas, too.
Yeah.
Like, a million years ago, I used to think, well, we can control the thermostat anywhere to, say, 68 degrees. Why can't we do that in the shower? Like, why can't we just type in, I want the water at 86 degrees? Like, why not?
Smart.
Yeah.
And now?
Well, I saw it, I know, in the club I belonged to, they had like on the thing, they had like 80, 90, whatever it is, but it didn't work.
My thing too, and along that line is, there should be a law, okay? Every hotel you go to, the hot, cold on the shower should work the same. It should be the same mechanism at every hotel, because there's so many times I've scolded, just 200 degrees because I thought I was making it colder, I'm making it hotter. Holiday Inn and Marriott, get on the same page, will you? So we stop getting hurt.
That's funny, and that's true. And then also the shower curtains. There's a whole lot of things.
Sure.
You know what? If this whole football thing doesn't work out, I think you're onto something.
Yeah, we could just sit and come up with ideas and watch someone else do them all day.
Or throw them onto Seinfeld.
That's
Seinfeld
right.
Part 2 or
yeah,
whatever
well,
it is.
Remember the bladder, right? The oil, the giant ball of oil. They dropped it out the window. Kramerica was going to save the environment.
In his intern.
Darren.
What do you work for? Kramerica. You don't have a... All right, anyway.
You may or may not have a chicken. Yeah.
All right. Anyway, so really a couple last questions, and we'll wrap it up. But number one is, if you had the opportunity today, tomorrow, whatever it is, to hang out with 3 people, alive or dead, to have a drink with them, a meal with them, who do you think they'd be?
Jimmy Buffett, for sure.
Yeah.
He's really someone who I don't know what it is. I'm drawn to his music. I'm drawn to his way of
lifestyle.
life.
Yeah.
Tom Landry,
Okay.
as an old Cowboys fan and a fan of football, it's just, he did more for the game than people realize. He really changed a lot. The third one, that's interesting. Howard Stern.
Really?
Yeah, and not for the...
You wouldn't be getting too many words in.
No, not for the shock jock part of it,
Yeah.
but just... I love I love interviews.
Yeah.
I think this is a great format, and to listen to him interview somebody. The other stuff you can take or leave, but when he sits down with a Paul McCartney or somebody to listen to the questions he asks and how deep he gets, I'd love to get. There's got to be a lot to him, So I'd love to get behind him. So he would be the third. That'd be a heck of a dinner party.
No kidding. And it's interesting, a lot of my guests, they'll say things like, they'll say Martin Luther King, or they'll say, Oprah, or they'll say, but, they're historical figures. Yeah, I'm like, I'd probably pick like George Washington. That'd be pretty cool, right? Someone else said Jesus. I said, well, that'd be pretty cool, but I wouldn't want to, I'd want to ask him about his like soccer. I mean, does he kick like the little stone around or something like that to throw things off a little bit? But, I like yours because mine is McCartney, actually. He would probably be the 3 guys. I'd want to bring McCartney. And just, in fact, I was probably creeping on my wife a little bit when I said, well, I had a dream the other night that I was actually hanging out with McCartney, and he was like in a kitchen chopping up stuff, but there's like a film crew there or something. But I was trying to figure out, well, I have like 8 seconds with the guy. What do I say to them? And he goes, no, you can hang out. I was like, what? Really? Okay, great. And then I actually met Ringo once, and I had a chance to chat with him briefly at an event where my friend said, you have 30 seconds to chat with him, whatever it is, don't be an idiot. I think were his words. And I said, well, how am I going to? So with a guy like a Ringo Starr, who's spoken to a billion people and answered, what's your favorite song? So I said, no, the key is to talk about the kids. And then if he's doing like charity stuff. So first thing I did was I said, look, your son Zach, amazing drummer, playing with the Who now.
Plays with the Who now.
And he's incredible. And he's all, thank you, all that stuff. And then I said, well, tell me more about your foundation. And so he's like, oh, well, let me. Blah, blah. And so someone was taking pictures, and they took a picture where Ringo is looking at me, and he's totally engaged. Meanwhile, in my head, I'm thinking, how much time do I have left? I have 30 seconds. Oh my God, is my time? I was going to say, Ringo, sorry, you got to stop talking. My time's up. I got to get out of here.
Ringo.
Oh my God. And then I talked about something else, but then I was starting to, Like really, but I was the last. I was batting last. I was last in line, so I could hang out a little bit. But it was But usually, like I'm not really too fanboyish around people, whatever it is. But that would be
he's a Beatle. I can understand.
Yeah. When you say a Beatle, although it reminds me of one other thing, real quick. Sure. In New York, there's a bar that I used to go to all the time that had live music called Rodeo Bar. It was on 27th and 3rd and was there for many years. And one night I was walking by. And I was walking by, and on the door it said, "We have a Beatle playing here, like next or whatever." And I'm like, "What?" Or it was tonight. "We have a Beatle tonight." And I was like, "What?" And it turned out it was Pete Best, the original drummer.
The original, yeah.
And it was Pete Best and his band were playing that night. So no way, what? So I went, and it was incredible. Like he was just drumming. But they had it was like rockabilly and all this kind of stuff. It was incredible. And I was like, how random is that?
It is.
That was pretty.
And that's part of the reason with the Howard Stern thing is because he interviews a lot of musicians.
Yeah.
And to hear the stories of Ringo, and actually that one was just on the other day. He had a long interview with Ringo Starr, which was fascinating because his version of a lot of the stories and Paul's version of a lot of stories are a little bit different.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So, just the stories of musicians and how they come up with what they want to write about and what they've gone through. It's really, really fascinating stuff. And music is particularly, I'd probably be right with you at that rodeo bar because, the live music is you gain a real appreciation, for someone, just like any athlete. I mean, what do they say? All athletes want to be musicians and all musicians want to be athletes. But, to see the craft and see how talented they are, it's incredible.
It is. And, I was, on the way up here, I was listening to, music in the car, and I was thinking, well, how hard is it to write like Yesterday or whatever it is? And I'm like, it's pretty,
Yeah.
Although, the story, he woke up one morning and it was sort of in his head for Yesterday, but originally it was called Scrambled Eggs.
Yes.
Yeah, which is,
And there was the song, what would you do if I sang out of tune? The original line would you throw garbage at me? Was the next line. This was Ringo just was telling the story the other day, and he said he refused because that's him. He sings that song for the Beatles. He said I refuse to sing that line, and that's when he changed his stand up and walk out. Like things like that. It's just incredible,
But I would have loved to have been like in the studio with these guys hanging out while they're just going like, all right, what do we say next, boys? And what's the next line or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's just to see it live happening, and that's one regret I sort of have is that there was no video back then of.
Someone should have. Yes, you would love to see.
Would have been amazing.
See that creative process, no doubt.
Well, we could talk for hours about this stuff.
Oh, hey man.
Maybe later over a beverage or something. But look, thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate it, Dan. You're a great guy, and the school's lucky to have you. I know you love being here, and you're lucky to have Colgate or whatever it was.
It's match made in Hamilton heaven, right?
Yeah, exactly. And but thanks so much for being here. All continued success, and I like to talk to people that I feel are the name of the podcast is Make Your Mark. It's all about how you're making your mark, and you're clearly putting your stamp, your mark on this school. So I appreciate everything.
Thanks so much, and I really enjoy the book. So everyone should get it too.
Right. Oh, right. Oh, yeah. Quiz on Chapter 8 tomorrow.
Okay, I better get moving then. The fourth quarter part, right? The fourth quarter.
You noticed the football?
Yes. And the ref and the coach says and all that. Yeah, I think it's laid out for athletes. It's really good.
Appreciate you being here. Thanks so much.
All
right, we'll talk soon.
Thanks so much for joining us today on this episode of Make Your Mark podcast. The goal of the podcast is to help you find ways to make your mark, to succeed in life, and to jump past your competition. Be sure to leave me a review on iTunes and Stitcher, and subscribe to be the first to hear new episodes. If you're looking for ways to make your mark, send me an email, mark@markmoyer.com, and I'll get back to you right away. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.